This building at 2941 West 70th Street in the Hyde Park neighborhood of South Los Angeles has had only a handful of uses. But its initial purpose was being the site of the first Lutheran High School west of the Rockies. The first in California, right on the western edge of South Los Angeles. It was the home of a family and the foundation for Lutheran high schools across Southern California. This was Dr. Walter A. Maier Memorial Lutheran High School, LA Lutheran High, LHS. But like many things in the South Los Angeles region, it ceased to exist. Its facade erased, and its legacy all but reduced to a few architectural clues and a series of personal stories amongst alumni and former faculty. In fact, despite decades of success, as of 2026, there are no Lutheran high schools within the limits of the city of Los Angeles. Yet, this school is still remembered and celebrated by a handful of people. And if you listen to their stories, you'd almost believe their version of the school exists in the present. I had a chance to meet with 36 alumni who all attended different iterations of LA Lutheran across 5 decades. What I found is that this group shares a sense of camaraderie that would have easily disintegrated when their school fell out of existence. But it didn't. If anything, their school pride, friendships, and stories have only become stronger over the years. But how? To understand the admiration these alumni have for their school and for each other, we first need to understand who first loved the school and how it was loved through its unsteady trajectory. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, there were no Lutheran high schools on the West Coast. However, support for building a Lutheran high school in Los Angeles goes back as early as 1915. But the idea was eventually spearheaded when Lutheran congregations in Southern California and the Federated Lutheran Women explored ideas to raise funds and sustain a Lutheran high school in the Los Angeles region. At the 1942 Lutheran Synodical Conference, the congregations formed the Lutheran High School Association of Southern California to oversee the development of a new Lutheran high school. After searching for a suitable property for 5 years, in 1948, the Lutheran High School Association purchased a 4-acre plot of land, a former landfill, for $40,000. The site, located at 70th Street and 8th Avenue, was owned by the Glick Lumber Company. The association, however, had the plan to rehabilitate the area to build a brand new high school campus
glamour through which too many forget the on-night birthday.
Lutheran minister Dr. Walter A. Maier, the founding speaker of the International Lutheran Hour, which was one of the largest radio broadcasts in the United States, was scheduled to speak at the groundbreaking of the new high school in the spring of 1950. However, when Maier died in January of 1950, the Lutheran High School Association elected to name the school Dr. Walter A. Maier Memorial Lutheran High School in honor of his legacy. The association also created a special fund in tribute to Dr. Walter A. Maier for the Lutheran High School, which Lutherans from across the United States supported. By February of 1950, the Lutheran High School Association began planning the construction of the first Lutheran high school in California. The association commissioned Orr, Strange & Inslee, a prominent mid-century modern architecture firm that had specialized in churches, to design the school in phases. The school was initially designed to accommodate 400 students within the first phase in a handful of spaces, including classrooms, a library, and other essential school buildings. As the association finalized its building plans, it named Alfred Freitag as the inaugural superintendent and principal of Dr. Walter A. Maier Memorial Lutheran High School. Alfred J. Freitag was born into a Lutheran family in Chester, Nebraska on April 4, 1916, and graduated high school in 1934.
He graduated in high school smack dab in the middle of the depth of the Depression, and there was no money. His grade school teacher, who was a single fellow by the name of Eric Christianer, gave him $10, and that was enough for him to get up to Concordia Teachers College in Seward, Nebraska.
Freitag graduated from Concordia Teachers College in Seward, Nebraska in 1938, and answered calls to teach history, religion, and music across 3 Lutheran schools in Nebraska and Michigan. In 1947, Freitag was called to lead the Detroit Lutheran High School as its superintendent, where he grew the Midwest city's Lutheran school system from 262 students to 460.
So he always valued education, and he knew it was the key to everything. And so when he had a chance, he first started in elementary school teaching, but then he had a chance to move on to Lutheran High School in Detroit, Michigan. That's where I grew up till I was 8. So it was in Detroit where he had this one high school, which eventually developed into several different high schools as he helped grow the school. So he just valued education, and apparently people in Southern California found out about it, and they thought he could help develop a brand new high school from scratch.
In January of 1953, Freitag answered a call from the Lutheran High School Association of Southern California to lead Los Angeles' first Lutheran high school. In Los Angeles, Freitag would be tasked with building the school system from the ground up by partnering with Lutheran churches in and near Los Angeles.
When it started, they needed some congregational support, so there were 4 churches that were part of the association at that time. The First Lutheran in Long Beach, Good Shepherd Lutheran in Inglewood, Faith Lutheran in Broadway, and it had a little mission at that time in Morningside Park, stayed together for long years, and one in the San Fernando Valley. And they were mostly Missouri Synod Lutherans. Some of them were American Lutheran Church congregations, because we had kids coming from all over.
These were all big schools. You had a lot of suburban children, a lot of Lutheran kids. So they went to those elementary schools, and then they would feed into Lutheran High because everybody wanted to continue their Christian education, and there weren't that many. Well, there was no other Lutheran school around.
And my dad was convinced that 4 congregations were not enough to keep it going. So he would tell, he had a slideshow, I must have it here someplace. And he took that out to show voters' meetings, congregational meetings, and stuff like that.
By June of 1953, mere months after the Lutheran Association called Freitag, The congregational support for the high school grew from 4 to 25 congregations and groups, including the High School Association and the Federated Lutheran Women.
The smallness, though, I think it was a big part. And the fact that a lot of the people knew everybody before they got there because of all the other programs in high school, which I thought was very clever. It was really kind of a genius move on their part. But part of that was survival because they reached out to these churches. The churches were the ones who supported the school and got it going. So that whole network was very, very important for them to begin with.
Freitag also worked with the Lutheran High School Association to choose the inaugural staff of the new Lutheran High School. After receiving 50 applications from teachers across the country, Freitag opened the school with a staff of 7, including himself.
They opened that first little school, which was just one strip of classrooms, and it had been built kind of without my dad's involvement. And it was built like to elementary school standards. So like all the drinking fountains were too low.
The campus was small, as you've seen. There was no gym. There was no locker room. The locker room was built when I was there. I thought that was interesting. There was not a cafeteria. Food trucks would come on campus at lunchtime, and you could buy your lunch. We had chapel every day that I can remember. We'd sit out on the quad, but you had just benches, like park benches that you sat on for chapel.
So when he came out here, he had to just start making do with what he had. And he was just good at that. He had a vision, and he was always a visionary, and he had a knack for selecting the right people to help him. And he built a faculty that was exceptional. And I know that in talking to other alumni, one of the things they'll talk about is who their teachers were.
Dr. Freitag briefly reflected on picking his staff in a 50th anniversary video shared with alumni in 2003.
One of the big treasures of my life are the dedicated staff that I was able to pick up. I was impressed with the fact they were interested in helping young people develop. And that's the thing that I remember the best. And no matter what area it was in, I found people that were dedicated to helping the children, the young people, to progress and to make the kind of a citizen that they ought to become.
The Dr. Walter A. Maier Memorial Lutheran High School opened its doors on September 14, 1953, with at least 80 9th and 10th grade students from 18 communities in Southern California. Starting the second school year, the school experienced a rapid enrollment growth by increasing its collaboration with more distant congregations, by instituting the school's first bus program that bused students from outlying communities into South Los Angeles.
They had a bus that went out to Alhambra every day. They had a late bus and an early bus for those who played sports or had to stay after. Also down in Orange County, out to the valley, but there was a whole bus system.
And when I started as a freshman, we took the bus. That was provided, you had to pay for it, but it was provided by Lutheran High. There were buses from all over. I don't know if you've known that part. And so we pick up bus in Van Nuys, and I think my mother would take us over there, the bus we got on at 6:15 in the morning, to travel to Lutheran High every day.
And this was before the freeway system was really fully developed. It was an interesting time. And so the buses were mostly cared for and maintained at Lutheran High and a couple of other places where, they would get that done.
While the school supported its aggressive outreach to build its student population, it also built out and graduated its first class of seniors in the spring of 1956. By that year, the students had done much to solidify their school, such as the establishment of various clubs, naming its mascot, the lion, and choosing the school colors, royal blue and white. By the time the first class of seniors graduated in 1956, Freitag introduced the first arrangement of Lutheran High School's Alma Mater, which he wrote himself in his own home. This Alma Mater would define the school for decades.
Where he actually wrote the words, I don't know, but I see him in my mind's eye. I see the living room. I know exactly where the piano was. And I see him playing over and over and over a tune, a melody, to get it just right. And that's where he wrote the music for it, was in our living room. I can just hear him, where the note wasn't quite right, and he would try the next one, and so forth.
That was really something that united the school, and can't emphasize how important the alma mater was. And that was a Freitag deal. It was a tangible part of the school spirit. I mean, it really united people. Amazing. Most alma maters are kind of, I can't even tell you the UCLA alma mater, and I went there 7 years. Most alma maters are no big. Lutheran High, I still know that alma mater.
As the school entered the fall semester fully built out in 1956, Lutheran High School doubled its staff to 14, increased its supporting congregations from 25 to 42, and quadrupled its enrollment from 80 students in 1953 to over 340 students across more than 80 communities. To keep up with the increased demand, Lutheran High School built 13 more classrooms during the 1956-57 school year. For Lutheran High School, the 1960s were the best of times and the worst of times. It was the best of times because the school saw an uptick in enrollment and firmly developed itself as a small but mighty high school. But it was the worst of times because of key events that made it easier for the school to lose its footing in its chosen community.
As far as other significant things that I can recall happening during that period that I was there was the Watts riots.
It was a hot, humid, uncomfortable period in mid-August 1965 when the pursuit and arrest of a young Negro traffic violator triggered tensions and feeling built up over several years into a full-fledged civil disturbance, culminating in the mobilization and employment of more than 13,000 National Guardsmen in support of civil law enforcement agencies to cope with and contain the riotous activity.
After a traffic stop turned awry, Watts and nearby South LA communities erupted into chaos between August 11th and August 16th, 1965. Nearly 4,000 people were arrested, over 1,000 injured, and just over 30 lost their lives. The riot also resulted in more than $40 million in property damage and the destruction of over 1,000 buildings. While the epicenter of the riots happened more than 7 miles away from the school, the impact of the Watts riots stigmatized Los Angeles for decades.
I remember my mother saying to me, if you're going right through Vernon, you're going right through Huntington Park, you're going right through South LA, if those things are still happening when school starts, you're not going. It was just, a long ride. And my mom was afraid that if there was anything that was going to be adverse, that I wouldn't have a way to readily come home, one, or, safety. And because she didn't know what to anticipate. And I really think that she was more worried about it than I was.
Professor Jack Schneider, a historian and policy analyst at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, explored the white flight in Los Angeles and its schools between the years of 1960 and 1980. In his research, he pinpoints the Watts riots as a catalyst for white flight in Los Angeles' urban areas. Similar to Lorraine's experience, newspaper publications harped on lingering riot-driven headlines after the uprising events. Schneider found that between 1966 and 1970, starting just a year after the Watts riots, Los Angeles Unified School District lost nearly 80,000 white students, while experiencing overall increases in Black and Latino enrollment. While Lutheran High School was not a public school, this figure demonstrates the disinvestment in inner-city schools. Lutheran High's location in Los Angeles categorized it as such. Schneider also found a coincidental population change that may be loosely related to the Watts riots. Orange County underwent a large population boom in the 1960s, doubling from just over 700,000 residents to more than 1.4 million residents. Additionally, during this same time frame, Schneider shared that Los Angeles had a 7% drop-off in school-aged children between 1960 and 1970. While there is no way to identify where families landed after moving from Los Angeles, the correlation between the growth of distant suburbs is noteworthy when reviewing the history of this school.
Everything kind of turned downward after 1968, 69, because of the area. It just got unsafe. And I do remember it was in 68 when Martin Luther King was killed. And it was just before Palm Sunday. And the choir was supposed to sing at one of the churches on Palm Sunday. And they canceled the whole thing because of our safety. But I do remember things changing a little bit at that time. When I was going to school, there was no segregation between whites and the Hispanics and the Blacks. That was all, we were all together. We were all one. And then I saw it change when I was a senior. I could see the differences coming in, which was sad because I still feel we're all one. You know, close friends, we're all one.
While we'll come back to this finding, it's also important to note that the 6 days of the Watts riots seemingly had little effect on Lutheran High School at first. In fact, glossing through the 60s, you'd find Lutheran High School at its peak. In sports, the football team won its first CIF championship in 1963. The baseball team won its first CIF championship in 1964. And the boys basketball team won the 1966 CIF championship. Throughout its history, several students participated in American Field Service, with Lutheran High School hosting a foreign student each year. By February of 1965, the South LA school reported having students from 5 different countries attending the Lutheran High School. Gerald Brummer, a well-loved and highly capable art teacher, led the Paw Prints yearbook staff, resulting in national acclamation for its art and design. And the neighboring Trailblazer, the Lutheran High School newspaper, boasted a circulation of 16,000 by 1961, and it was shared amongst all of the Lutheran congregations in Southern California. The school continued to attract Lutheran and non-Lutheran families across Southern California. In fact, the school had to add 3 new portable classrooms and an additional 10 faculty members to accommodate 650 students in 1965. The school had its record enrollment of over 660 students and more than 40 staff members in 1967. That is the largest enrollment figure in the school's history. And by December of 1967, the Lutheran High School Association fully paid off its South LA campus through the help of funds raised by the association's thrift shops, which brought in thousands of dollars each year to help fund the school's initiatives and purchase additional properties around the school's campus. Yet, with as many good things that happened in the school, as it approached the 1970s, the school population began to slowly and steadily decline.
That's Los Angeles. Millions of people doing millions of different things. Working, playing, building, repairing, going to work, going home, going to school. That's what this is all about, you know, about going to school.
Although LA Lutheran reached its enrollment peak in the mid-1960s and slowly declined from that point, the school's culture and traditions matured during the first half of the 1970s. Areas like Senior Square, a socially exclusive area on the campus just for Lutheran High seniors, remained a staple tradition for nearly 2 decades of students.
I do have to make one correction, though. Eric said welcoming, inviting spaces, and I think we all can agree, regardless of what campus you were on, you weren't welcome on Senior Square if you weren't senior.
Well, of course not.
That is true.
That was instant death.
Exactly. What? Why are you
It
here?
is so true. If you went to the office, you were always wanting to peek around that corner to see what it looked. At least I was.
Yeah.
You know, wanted to see what it was like. And when you turned into a senior, that was a reward. That was big time.
Senior Square was where only the seniors could go. So if there were ever any juniors or underclassmen that tried to step foot, you know, everybody could be like, no, get out of here. This is just for seniors. And so the underclassmen would run because it was just for seniors. So, you know, people could have lunch out there, they could talk, they could socialize, but it was a place that set us apart because we were seniors. We were the oldest.
Lutheran High School found several ways to encourage and build school spirit. The drill team, the lion mascot, and the cheerleaders were among the front line in supporting the energy behind Lutheran at virtually every game and celebration.
So I was prepared. I tried out. I was a junior varsity cheerleader for 2 years, and then was chosen to be on the varsity team. And my senior year, I was the head cheerleader, the captain of the team. So I reached my pinnacle as a senior in high school as captain of the varsity cheerleading squad. But I'm telling you, it was intense, right? The tryouts were intense. The discipline was intense. And on pep rally day, the classes would be trimmed by 10 minutes each. So all the classes got out early. So you would have that time at the end of the day for this major pep rally. Everybody would flow into the quad, and the cheerleaders would lead the pep rally before a really big game on Friday night.
One of the biggest games was brought in by the Lutheran High School's homecoming tradition, which entailed the homecoming football game, the homecoming court, and a parade of glass floats.
I was on the homecoming court. I was a princess, not the queen. But the thing I remember is, again, it was something that did not feel cutthroat to me. You know, you were happy for everyone that was on the court. I don't remember being boo-hoo, I'm sad I didn't win. It just felt like everybody was supportive.
And every day during homecoming week, we did something different. Like you had to dress like this, or, you know, every day was a different theme. And people got into it. People really got into it. And so every class was graded by fellow classmates on who decorated their class car the best. And then whenever we would be decorating the cars, and I can't remember how long it took to decorate a car. I don't remember if it took a week or 2 weeks or whatever, but it was a big deal. And whoever's mother or dad had the car at their house, all the kids would come over like on a Friday night or Saturday afternoon or night, and people would just be, you know, twirling the tissue paper and sticking it on there. And the art people had it all penciled out as to what color should go here, just like the floats for the Rose Parade. That's how we did our cars. That's exactly the way we did them.
For most students, music sat at the center point of LA Lutheran. The high school began with boy and girl a cappella choirs, which would play at church rallies across the Los Angeles area. The Lutheran High Choir, under the direction of George Zender, began with the school and started its flagship annual Christmas concert at the end of the high school's first fall semester, singing both sacred and secular music. In later years, the choir would go on to record albums on their performances and greatest hits. The jazz band later played at basketball games and in concerts, and the school continued to blossom within its musical roots. The music program, however, developed further when it was taken over by Bud Bisbee, though one of his earliest contributions was rearranging the Alma Mater.
And when Bud Bisbee took that and arranged it for basically a concert version, we would end our spring concert, and afterwards, they would end the spring concert with Bisbee's version of the Alma Mater, and just and everybody, but certainly all the women just crying their eyes out of it.
Bisbee also worked with a select group of choir members to build out the invitation-only Melody Makers, which became a staple at Lutheran High School for ages.
I was in the Melody Makers. We did real good. I remember the trips that we took, just going out of town. I think we went to Arizona one time, then we went to Northern California one time, and just going on the bus trips with everybody and having a really good time. I remember going when we did our album, the famous choir album we did, and we went to that church that had the great acoustics.
Athletes on the campus traveled across Southern California and made connections with other institutions and schools.
We didn't have any facilities. We did have the football field that we were able to practice on, but we couldn't play any games there.
Our home fields were in the community. So Rancho Cienega, Inglewood High School, Manchester Park, all of those were our home venues. So you really got to see a large swath of the community. And we were really involved in the community in that sense. Didn't feel foreign to me. It didn't feel odd. It felt like those were our home fields.
So I would say that also blends over with how we went to football games, because we didn't have a football field. We didn't have a basketball field, or a baseball. So we had to pay other schools to use their property. But the output of people that came to support our school was big, because fathers and mothers and the kids and maybe their nephews or something, they would also come. So even though we were a small school, we had a big turnout to support the people who played. And at least your mom and dad would come.
Well, and I also think, for instance, not having a gymnasium, again, that sort of, tied us together. It gave, we sort of were the underdogs, or we didn't have a home court advantage. And I think for our athletic teams, it probably brought them closer together and gave them more impetus to, beat these teams who came from schools who had all the advantages of having their own football fields and their own gymnasiums.
We were diverse and we were very united, and we seemed to just have a great time. We had a great time in high school.
But there was something about our connection, and I would probably have to say, because it was a Christian school and we prayed, and we talked about God, and we talked about Jesus Christ, and we talked about our faith. I think those were the principles that kept us together, because we were all believers, or most of us were believers in Jesus Christ.
But I think those religious values and that daily chapel convocation and some wise spiritual words of wisdom that were imparted to us every single day, that took hold, right? That was a seed that was planted in each and every one of us, and that took hold. And I think we're the product of that.
In the fall of 1968, Freitag announced that he would take a sabbatical leave for at least a year to pursue seminary studies at Concordia Seminary. By February of 1971, Dr. Freitag retired from his post as superintendent to become a full-time pastor at Zion Lutheran Church in Glendale. Freitag was the longest-serving principal of LA Lutheran High School, and a series of other principals took his place soon after his departure.
There was a lot of change that was going on, and whether it was with the Lutheran High Orange thing and all the people leaving and the general decline of the congregations, if you looked at those 4 founding congregations, they all went through some huge changes.
The school was doing extremely well, and the Ladies Guild had raised money year after year after year to buy up properties, to buy up the whole block. And they had pretty much that. And Dad just wanted to continue to build a high school where it was. Now it became a changing neighborhood. And members of the board felt that we're not going to keep our enrollment here if we have too much change and there's too much, they never used the word integration, but that's exactly what they meant. And we think we're going to have to move elsewhere. We think we're going to have to move out somewhere else and not be in the mixed neighborhood, which was totally contrary to what my dad thought.
In reviewing the yearbooks, it's apparent that Lutheran High School was not initially diverse. However, during the late 1960s, the school began to experience an explosive growth in diversity.
Our class had the first African-American homecoming queen, Sheila Ferris. And that was a big deal, the first African-American, because, that was not heard of, but she made it.
Lutheran Church Missouri Synod pastor and educator Dr. Dennis Ray Holm published an analysis on the Dr. Walter A. Maier Memorial Lutheran High School, where he reviewed the changing demographics of the school. Between the late 1960s and the early 1970s, Holm reported the black student population at Lutheran High School grew from 5% to 50%. While the black and Latino student population increased at the school, the overall population continued to decrease steadily.
My dad was, he was a man for everyone. He didn't care what your position was, what your race was, what your religion was. We even had a Buddhist kid coming to our high school, and so the board pretty much made the decision that he was done. That's exactly what happened. And Dad said, it's just going to die. It's just going to die. You stay here, you build this wonderful high school. So what if the population transitions? Then, when you're successful enough, you open another high school somewhere else. In addition, but those people did not have the courage or the vision to see it that way, unfortunately.
Earlier, we explored Jack Schneider's analysis on Orange County's population growth throughout the 1960s. In 1966, with the example and popularity set by Lutheran High School, especially with several students commuting from Orange County, Lutheran congregations began surveying the idea of building a Lutheran high school in Orange County. This later gave rise to a separate Lutheran High School Association of Orange County. At the same time, the Lutheran High School Association of Southern California, which also operated the Lutheran High School in South LA, began raising funds for a second Lutheran high school in Laverne, California, in the San Gabriel Valley. Both the Laverne and Orange County campuses opened in the fall of 1973. The opening of both campuses aligned with LA Lutheran's enrollment attrition, likely capturing students from both Orange County and the San Gabriel Valley. In short, some of the families who may have considered LA Lutheran from outlying areas now had closer alternatives. By the 1970s, disinvestment in South Los Angeles began to bind the school. Financially, in 1973, dozens of congregations began to back out of funding for LA Lutheran, voting that it was not essential to the church's work, which caused more financial distress for LA Lutheran High School. Socioeconomically, Dennis Ray Holm described the school as an island in its neighborhood, denoting the school's increase of security, including barbed wire fencing and hiring of an armed guard in the 1970s. And gang violence became a frequent occurrence and top of mind for many students, faculty, and parents.
The difference was the neighborhood changed a lot and people became kind of afraid of the neighborhood. The biggest change, I would say, during my 4 years there was when we stopped practicing cross country at Centinela Park. Because when I got there as a freshman, you would run to Centinela Park, and so what's happening, people would get ambushed or mugged on the way to running to practice, because we'd run from the school to the park for every practice. And so my senior year, they decided that was too dangerous because a couple guys got beat up, because you just run through the neighborhood. If you ever look at a map, you can see how it is. It was about a mile away, and that was our warm up. And so that was one thing. And then when the baby Crips came in and invaded the campus during track practice one time, there was chains and roller skates.
I used to ride the Crenshaw bus home. There were about 5 or 6 of us that would walk up to the bus stop together after school. And we got jumped a couple of times. And my dad was, worried about that. But nothing bad happened. But, it wasn't like nobody got hurt. Nobody really got anything. I think they grabbed my friend's purse.
It was one security guard. I think it was Melvin. Okay, Melvin. I got a picture of Melvin sat in his truck, in his car. And yes, it was a fenced-in campus. And again, there may have been barbed wire, but that's just, to prevent anyone from coming in. And yet there were, again, in the 70s, late 70s, Crips or Blood, I'm not sure who they were. But it's like, no, I debunked that. We didn't have armed security walking around. No. No. Melvin, who was half asleep the time in his car.
A lot of people felt like they were running away from the community, and they were. It was bad. And but I would tell you, in terms of a student and all the things, and I was president of the choir and drum major of the band, I didn't notice any change. I thought things got better every year, and I don't think it's just because I was a senior or a junior. It's because we actually had a better program.
As early as 1973, believing the Los Angeles campus had become too cramped despite declining enrollment, the Lutheran High School Association had plans to move to a larger location to more than double its student population. The search for a new campus continued for 3 years.
So yeah, I'm just really puzzled by that because it was just white flight, and it pretty much doomed the school, whereas it should have been a perfect example of God's creation, God's world, and God's love for us all.
Despite the immense growth and development over the years, the Los Angeles Lutheran High School found itself overextended financially, especially with a decrease in both congregational support and student enrollment. Dennis Ray Holmes noted the school was overextended with debt, stating that the thrift store funds used to initially pay off the campus were used to buy additional residential properties for the expansion of the school. Later, those properties were refinanced, according to Holm, to keep the school afloat during its financial turmoil. For a while, the Lutheran High School Association looked to move to a site in Torrance, but those plans fell through because of zoning issues. In 1976, the Lutheran High School Association found a 30-acre campus that formerly housed the Villa Cabrini Girls' School, a former boarding school and later all-girl parochial school that closed in 1970. The school was operated and owned by the Order of the Sacred Heart, which was headquartered in Chicago. The abandoned campus had a chapel, classroom buildings, an auditorium, gym, and a series of other older buildings that were damaged in the 1971 Sylmar earthquake.
Many things have been said over that move from both sides of we should not have moved and we should have moved. And the school was seeing that they were losing enrollment at a pretty high rate. So because of that dwindling enrollment and not having much money, they were looking into moving to a place where maybe we could retain as many as possible from that geographical area of South Central and pick up more in the valley at Burbank Lutheran High. There were meetings. I remember the meetings where you had everybody. You had faculty, administration, and parents at the meeting. And I remember one particular gentleman who was a black man and married a white woman, and their kids were at Lutheran High. And he stood up in that Sunday afternoon meeting and he said, "You know, my wife and I were just at an event in Glendale last night, and I know Glendale's not Burbank, but it's right by Burbank." He said, "And I thought to myself, what a lovely neighborhood and setting this is." And he pushed for moving.
The Lutheran High School Association drafted a proposal to lease the Burbank property for 3 years with an option to buy it, negotiating enough time for the school to sell its former campus. The association purchased the 30-acre campus for $3.5 million in November of 1976.
And I know a lot of people, and myself included, were not too happy that they moved the campus. And I'm not sure what the reasons were, but and I have some friends who stay, they're angry that Lutheran High, relocated.
Lutheran High School opened its new facilities in the 1977 spring semester with 290 students. By the fall of 1977, it had grown to include 340 students and slowly increased onward. Not long after the campus moved to Burbank, the association voted to officially change the school's name from Dr. Walter A. Maier Memorial Lutheran High School to L.A. Lutheran High.
Well, mixed feelings about the campus moving. However, in regards to the facility, I think the facilities out in Burbank were just much better. They upgraded the amount of space they had. Once again, like they had the great gym space, but they had also space to build other things too. So it made sense in regards to being able to have more area and a much better facility.
While the buildings were new to LA Lutheran High School, traditions such as Senior Square, choir, and homecoming continued at the new site, though many students remember that mid-year transition as harsh.
I personally, I think a lot was lost in the move. All the history from the old campus, the feeling was just so different. Us getting on buses and shipped to an area that we weren't used to.
And honestly, I gotta say this because I hear this all the time, and mostly from the class of 77. You guys are talking, and from your perspective, I get why you guys feel the way you feel. Moving in the second half of your senior year, that would suck. I didn't understand why the school did that anyway. If they were going to do this, it should have been a full school year, not a half a school year. But to blanket it and say that everybody who went to the campus had that same experience, we didn't. I came from Los Angeles. I was supposed to go to the Los Angeles campus. They moved it right before I was supposed to go. In fact, that was one of the transitions. They had to scramble to get us there.
Well, you didn't know the difference. See, I'm sure Willie probably would say the same thing. We were looking forward to Senior Square. Having the chance, the opportunity to go out to Senior Square. We had been there 3.5 years. And we look forward to being able to go to Senior
And
Square.
and again, I get that from your perspective because you guys were yanked out in the middle of your school year, but I wasn't deprived of Senior Square. We had Senior Square.
Did you guys
were-
really have a Senior Square?
Yes, we really did have a Senior Square, and God forbid if you try to put a toe in Senior Square.
However, the school was impacted, with its black population declining from a 50% high on the South Lake campus to a 20% low during the transitioning semester on the new Burbank campus. By the end of the 1976 school year, there were roughly 343 students attending the campus. As the school continued to embark on a plan to limit future student enrollment to 1,000 students, it expanded its offering from just high school to also include 7th and 8th grade in the 1983 school year. But it never saw a large increase in students. How would the Lutheran High School Association take on a $3.5 million mortgage? Dennis Ray Holm wrote that the association's plan was to develop and liquidate at least 4.5 acres of the new Burbank property. But the school never accomplished that. The original Lutheran High School sat unsold for nearly 2 years until the First Church of God bought the original 4.5-acre campus from the Lutheran High School Association in December of 1979 for $825,000. The campus would later house the 900-member congregation and the church's day school. However, paying off the remainder of the mortgage proved to be a challenge for the association.
We had a wonderful lady guild, and they ran Lutheran thrift shop, and they raised the bulk of our money to stay on campus. If it weren't for them, we would have sailed a lot sooner. We wouldn't have lasted 9.5 years. But they raised like $250,000 a year, which was very needed.
The school participated in parent-run carnivals and even found partnership with the Harlem Globetrotters to raise funds for the school. Yet, it wasn't enough. Less than 10 years after Lutheran High School purchased its Burbank campus, Lutheran High School announced plans to sell its high school campus to Woodbury University for $6.5 million in September of 1985, and would be housed temporarily at the Mission Hills Chapel of the Cross campus beginning September of 1986. The move shocked the student body.
My junior year, the end of my junior year, they sold the campus and we moved to that temporary campus on Mission Hills, which I think they ended up being there for many years, but I was only there 1 year. And so we lost about, I would say about half, maybe 2/3 of our senior class because they didn't want to go to that small campus. So then it was just, I think there was about 30 of us that just was like, it's our senior year, we're not going to transfer. And we just went to the new campus, and that was that.
By the end of the 1986 school year, there were 332 students listed in the yearbook. By the time the school moved to its Mission Hills campus, the student population dropped by more than half, leaving 118 students listed in the yearbook by the end of 1987. The school further downsized to a low of 89 students by 1989. While some traditions remained, the school began to undergo new changes in its temporary home. In January of 1990, the Lutheran High School Association negotiated the purchase of a new campus in Sylmar, the northwest boundary of the Los Angeles city limits, at a former strip mall on Eldridge Avenue.
We left as much standing structure as we could and built around it, and then we had to put in classrooms.
The Lutheran High School opened its new, permanent $4 million campus on September 9, 1991. The campus, reminiscent in size of its original high school, had 5 acres of land and 14 classrooms.
I also became a teacher and then came back and taught at Lutheran High when it was in Sylmar. It was a completely different school. Like there was no, I mean, other than like having the same mascots and stuff, and they had our trophies in the trophy cases and stuff like that. The feel for the school was completely different. It was a very different environment.
On one end, traditions like Senior Square practically dissolved by the time the new campus was built, and may have left with the exodus of students during the transition from Burbank to Mission Hills. However, the school did find its way back to one of its original pillars: music. In 1996, the number of students participating in the music program grew to nearly half of the student body.
When I went to the school, we were incredibly music focused. I would say probably majority of students were involved in the music department in one way or another. And so we did a lot of big productions, and we had a lot of different musical groups for the size of our school. Looking back, I know some public high schools that have less music offerings than we did at the time. So everything from jazz band to concert choirs, marching bands, and quite a few productions. Most of them were musical throughout the year. And we would have live pit orchestra that would play for those musicals. So it was very music heavy. Most of us that were in music or that were in sports were also in music. So it was just something most people did.
Yet, even with this new home further entrenched in the San Fernando Valley, enrollment of the school continued to steadily dwindle.
So even in the 6 years I was there, we would get, because I taught in the junior high, we would get these huge classes from the feeder schools, these 6th grade classes. So 7th and 8th grade, I'd have like 120 kids. Well, pretty soon, all those elementary schools started shutting down. And it just changed the landscape of what schools could survive.
There must have been at least 10 elementary schools in the valley that were attached to a Lutheran church. And that's where where Lutheran High, they gathered from there too, along with all the other churches. Well, all those closed.
If you're searching for an alternative to the overcrowded, underfunded public school system, then look no further than your local Concordia campus, offering a safe...
As the school struggled to maintain adequate enrollment, it merged with First Lutheran High School in 2012, forming an entirely new school called Concordia Junior and Senior High School, which sat as part of the other Concordia Christian schools across the valley. The Concordia school system was developed to unify Lutheran schools in the San Fernando Valley. The merger disintegrated the school's alma mater, decades of history, and its anchor point for thousands of alumni.
And then they decided to rebrand. And I think that was kind of hard on a lot of the alumni because they went from Lutheran High School or LHS to Concordia High School. And they took away the mascot, they changed the colors, they repainted everything. It was all different. And so I think that might have been their nail in the coffin of the situation, because it's kind of like, even if you are trying to be nostalgic or something, like, and you want to go back and see, like, you're expecting to at least root for the same mascot or something, and everything changed. The colors, everything.
In 2016, the Concordia Junior and Senior High School announced it would permanently close its high school component and moved its 7th and 8th grade capacities to the Concordia branded schools in Granada Hills. The Lutheran High School was no longer solvent in a changing private education landscape.
So that was heartbreaking, because it's like we have no frame of reference. Like, we can't go back to the building is still there, but we have no real link to it. It's gone. It's been severed. So it's just sad.
Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really
Yet, even with the school gone, Lutheran High School alumni still find joy in both the past and present. As of 2026, all 3 campuses that LA Lutheran High School occupied are still schools today. In Sylmar, its campus is used by a charter school. In Burbank, Woodbury University, through the University of Rutland, still operates the campus. And in Los Angeles, a local charter school has operated on the school site since the early 2010s. The Laverne, California campus that opened in the early 1970s closed in 2023 after a steady enrollment decline that began in 2000. Orange Lutheran High School is doing well enrollment-wise and continues to stand as the flagship Lutheran high school experience in Orange and Southern California.
It's easy to look back now when things are relatively calmer and say they should have stayed. But at some point, it's a dollars and cents, right? So I can't fault anybody for that, right? It just it still feels bad though, that they didn't stay and that it's still not there and that it's still not my high school, right?
While the school no longer exists, there is one aspect of the school that continues to grow across all groups of alumni: the admiration for its teachers, who all worked to build the school and cultivated an experience worth remembering, for some, upwards of 50 and 60 years later.
And so everybody who went into teaching at Lutheran schools came through a system that understood it as a sacred calling. So it wasn't just, I'm going to clock in, clock out.
It really was a unique opportunity that we had there. And so it was sad to see it go. But yeah. And the teachers really were very dedicated and kind.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing, special place. It'd be very difficult to recreate unless you were like in the middle of nowhere or something like that, where you could kind of do that. And you would have a hard time finding teachers now that would be that committed. We've sort of changed the way the teaching profession has gone and in that way. So there was no work-life balance for those guys.
And it's just such a shame because we had such a wonderful experience there, educationally, spiritually, socially. It was just extraordinary. And that's where you find almost all alumni will talk about, their teachers. They love this person or they love that person and so forth.
And most of us know each other. That was the thing about it being such a small school, is that even if somebody wasn't your best friend or somebody you didn't hang out with, I knew everybody's name, and everybody knew everybody.
And when I say this, I mean, I have friends. I have, friends that are important to me that I've known for 50 plus years. I've been to weddings, I've been to christenings, I've been, they've helped me through some issues, when I lost my dad, or, it's just, they've been there for me.
I think the thing that impresses me in my heart is just love, kindness, acceptance. Hard to find in today's world. Maybe no less hard then, but it was it was just love. I don't know how else to say it. And that might sound trite, or that might sound superficial, or, easy to say that. But that's what I feel in my heart when I think about that.
We know you'll see it's the people at Lutheran High that makes this place so different. The faculty is really dedicated and really good at what they do, while we've got teachers here who write books to help other teachers teach. The students are special too. People who are loved are always special. And at Lutheran High, we are loved. We know God loves us. so are free to love one another.
Even though the school is no longer here, the love behind it continues to persist. And being able to love, the good and the bad, through it all, is a common trait in Lutheran High School alumni across all three of its campuses. It's not so much about the architecture, the location, or the status that contributes to the legacy. In fact, it's a lot simpler than that. It's really about the love behind it all that makes it all worth remembering and worth sharing all these years later.